I recognized my wife's perfume in the background of my boss's video call. That's how it started. A faint whisper, barely a ghost on the wind, but enough to snag my attention in the sterile hum of my home office, the same room I spent 14 hours a day in. It was late, probably past 10, and I was on yet another call with David, my boss. He was one of those guys who lived and breathed the company, his face perpetually illuminated by the glow of his screen, even at this ungodly hour. We were hashing out some quarterly report, the kind of mind-numbing detail that makes you question every life choice that led you to this exact moment. My daughter, Lily, was already asleep upstairs, and Sarah, my wife, was likely reading in bed, a paperback glow seeping under the door. Or at least, that's what I told myself. The perfume. It was distinct. Not overpowering, but definitely there. It was Sarah's signature scent, the one she'd worn since we first started dating. A blend of something floral and something warm, like vanilla and jasmine, and a hint of something musky. It was the smell of home, of intimacy, of her. And it was drifting, faintly, from David's screen. Before you go thinking I'm some kind of psycho, let me clarify. This wasn't some random scent. This was our scent. The one I bought her for our anniversary 3 years ago, the one she practically bathed in. The one I buried my face in when I needed to feel grounded. So yeah, it hit me like a ton of bricks. My brain, already fried from staring at spreadsheets and arguing about EBITDA, did a hard reboot. My focus, which had been laser sharp on David's rambling monologue about market trends, fractured. I blinked, trying to shake it off, attributing it to fatigue, to my own overactive imagination playing tricks on me. Maybe David had a visitor. Maybe his wife or girlfriend wore something similar. But the doubt, once planted, began to sprout tendrils, insidious and dark. I tried to push it down, to get back to the damn report. David was still talking, his voice a drone in the background. I nodded, muttered agreements, but my mind was miles away, replaying that faint scent, trying to pinpoint its source. It was definitely coming from David's end of the connection. His office, or whatever room he was in, was usually impeccably tidy, almost sterile. Not the kind of place where you'd expect a lingering perfume, unless someone was there. Someone close. Someone he'd want to be close to. This whole situation, this whole story, it's heavy. And if you're finding yourself drawn into it, if you're feeling that pull of something dark and unfolding, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, throw a like on this video, share it with anyone you think might get it, and leave a comment down below. Your engagement helps keep these stories coming. Seriously, it means more than you know. Okay, back to it. So, I'm on this call, trying to sound engaged, but my gut is churning.
David's office camera was fixed, showing a sliver of a wall, a tasteful landscape painting, and a corner of his mahogany desk. Nothing out of the ordinary, but the scent was undeniably there. I remember leaning closer to my monitor, as if that would somehow amplify the smell through the digital ether. It was ridiculous, I know, but I was desperate for confirmation or denial. Anything. I cleared my throat, trying to sound casual. "Hey, David," I said, my voice a little hoarse. "Everything okay on your end? You sound a little distracted." He chuckled, a dry, rustling sound. "Just a long day, Mark. You know how it is. This Q3 crunch never ends." He didn't mention anyone else being there. No casual, "Hold on, let me just get my wife for a sec," or anything. Just the report, the numbers, the endless grind. But the perfume lingered, a phantom presence in the room. I started to catalog the women in David's life that I knew. His wife, Brenda, was a lawyer, very polished, very professional. I couldn't imagine her wearing that scent, not to David's office, not late at night. She was usually at home with their 2 teenagers, and David didn't have any assistants who worked late, at least not that I knew of. He was a solo operator, mostly. My mind immediately went to Sarah. She had a meeting with her book club that night, or so she told me. They usually met at someone's house, and Sarah always came home smelling faintly of coffee and whatever snacks they'd devoured. But this was different. This was the scent of a woman who had been in close proximity to another man. The thought, raw and sharp, pierced through the fog of my exhaustion. "No, don't go there, Mark," I commanded myself. "It's a coincidence. Your brain is tired. You're reading too much into it." But the seed of doubt had been sown, and it was already taking root. I found myself watching David's face more closely, looking for any telltale signs of something amiss, a flush, a nervous twitch, a strained smile. He seemed perfectly normal, his eyes locked on the screen, his fingers flying across his keyboard. He was a creature of habit, David, predictable, methodical, which made this whole thing feel even more jarring. It was like finding a crack in a perfectly smooth facade. I tried to steer the conversation back to work, to the tangible, to the spreadsheets, but my thoughts kept circling back to that scent, to the implication it carried. It was a silent accusation hanging in the air. After the call finally ended, around midnight, I sat there for a good 15 minutes, staring at my blank monitor. The silence of the house pressed in on me. Lily was asleep. Sarah was supposedly asleep too. I got up and walked quietly out of my office, my footsteps muffled by the carpet. The hallway was dark, save for the faint glow from the digital clock on the microwave in the kitchen. I went to our bedroom door, hesitated for a moment, then pushed it open just a crack.
Sarah was asleep, her breathing soft and even. Her side of the bed was undisturbed, the duvet pulled up neatly. No sign of her being awake, let alone having come downstairs. I closed the door as gently as I could, a knot of unease tightening in my chest. It was probably nothing. David's office, a visitor, a shared workspace. But my gut kept screaming otherwise. It was that specific perfume, the one that had been our secret language, the one that whispered of intimacy and desire. And it was in David's space, late at night, without explanation. The next morning, I woke up with a dull ache behind my eyes, the sleep doing little to refresh me. The scent, though no longer physically present, still clung to the edges of my memory. Sarah was already in the kitchen, making coffee, humming a soft tune. She looked as she always did in the morning, a little rumpled, a little sleepy, but radiant. She smiled at me as I entered, a genuine, warm smile that usually melted away any lingering stress. "Morning, sleepyhead," she said, her voice still thick with sleep. She came over and kissed me, a soft peck on the lips. And I caught it. Faint but unmistakable. Her perfume. Not the strong daytime version, but the softer, lingering scent from the night before. My heart did a strange little lurch, a combination of relief and something else, something colder. Relief that it was her perfume, her scent. But the colder feeling, that was the suspicion, clinging on stubbornly. If she'd been wearing it last night and I'd smelled it on David's call, did that mean what? I forced a smile. "Morning? Rough night?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light, conversational. She shrugged, pouring herself a mug of coffee. "Book club went late. You know how Carol gets with her wine. But it was fun." She turned back to me, her eyes clear and bright. "Did you get that report done with David?" "Yeah, finally wrapped it up around midnight," I said, watching her carefully. "You were still up?" she asked, taking a sip of her coffee. "Just couldn't sleep," I lied, the words tasting like ash. I avoided her gaze, focusing on the steam rising from my own mug. My mind was racing. If she was at Carol's and I smelled her perfume on David's call, then David must have been at our house, or she'd been at his. The implications were a terrifying spiral. I knew David. He was married, for starters. And he wasn't exactly the type to invite colleagues over for late-night chats, especially not colleagues' wives. The thought of Sarah there, with David, at midnight, was a bitter pill. It was so far outside the realm of their usual behavior that it seemed impossible. Yet the evidence, however flimsy, was there. I spent the day at work in a daze. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach clenched. Was it Sarah? Was it David? I replayed the video call in my head, searching for any detail I might have missed. Was there a woman's handbag in the corner of his office? A stray strand of hair? Anything.
But there was nothing. David was meticulously careful. He was a professional, through and through. That's what made this so insidious. It was the quiet betrayals, the The ones that leave no visible scars but eat away at the foundation of everything you thought was solid. I kept picturing Sarah, her radiant smile, her easy laughter. She was the center of my world. Lily and Sarah, that was it, my everything. The idea of her not being entirely mine, not entirely honest with me, was a physical ache. That evening, Sarah was making dinner. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the air, a comforting aroma that usually made me feel safe. But tonight, it felt hollow. I sat at the kitchen island, nursing a beer, watching her move around the kitchen with an effortless grace. She seemed happy, content, or was it an act? The question gnawed at me. So I began, my voice carefully neutral. Anything interesting happened at book club last night? She turned, a smile on her face, and then it faltered slightly as she met my gaze. There was something in my eyes, a new intensity, a searching quality that she hadn't seen before. Not really, she said, her voice a little softer. Just the usual. Carol made that spinach dip thing. It was okay. She avoided my eyes for a moment, picking at a loose thread on her apron. It was a tiny gesture, almost imperceptible, but I noticed it. My suspicion, already a raging fire, flared brighter. She was hiding something. Carol's spinach dip, I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. Right. Did you happen to run into anyone there you weren't expecting? She finally looked at me, her brow furrowed slightly. What do you mean? She asked, her voice tinged with a hint of confusion, or maybe defensiveness. I took a deep breath, trying to control the tremor in my hands. I mean, did anyone unexpected show up at Carol's? Like, say, my boss, David? Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second, a flicker of something unreadable passing across her face. Then she recovered. David? No, of course not. Why would David be at Carol's book club? Her tone was light, almost dismissive, but the momentary hesitation, the flicker in her eyes, it was enough. It was a confession without words, the confirmation of my deepest fear. I stood up, the stool scraping loudly against the tile floor. The comforting aroma of dinner suddenly felt suffocating. Because, I said, my voice low and dangerous, I smelled Sarah's perfume on David's video call last night, and it was late, and he was distracted. And you went to book club, but I have a feeling you weren't anywhere near Carol's house. The air in the kitchen crackled with tension. Sarah stood frozen, her spatula clattering to the floor. Her face, moments before warm and familiar, was now a mask of dawning realization and something I couldn't quite decipher: fear, guilt, defiance. Her lips parted, but no sound came out.
She just stared at me, her eyes wide and dark, and in that moment, the comfortable reality of our life shattered into a million sharp, glittering pieces. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, broken only by the frantic pounding of my own heart. The game, whatever it was finally out in the open, and I had no idea where it would end. The silence in the kitchen wasn't just the absence of sound. It was a living, breathing thing, heavy with unspoken accusations and the suffocating weight of truth revealed. Sarah's face, illuminated by the harsh overhead light, was a tableau of emotions I couldn't fully process. Her eyes, usually so warm and open when they met mine, were now shadowed, darting away from my direct stare. The spatula lay forgotten on the floor, a metallic glint against the pristine white tiles, a stark symbol of the disruption that had just shattered our domestic peace. I watched her, every instinct screaming at me to push, to demand, to break through the wall she was erecting, but a part of me, the part that had loved her for 15 years, recoiled from the precipice I just pushed us both towards. "Mark, you're mistaken," she finally stammered, her voice a thin thread against the roaring silence. It was a weak defense, barely a whisper, and the tremor in it betrayed her. She tried to force a smile, a pathetic attempt at normalcy that only amplified the deception. "David's office. Maybe Brenda wears something similar." Brenda, his wife, the lawyer. I'd already run through that scenario, dismissed it for 1,000 reasons,
not least of which was Brenda's own signature scent, a crisp, almost masculine cologne that was as far from Sarah's warm floral notes as possible. I took a step closer, my voice low, each word deliberately enunciated. Brenda wears Chanel No. 5, Sarah. We bought it for her anniversary gift last year. This wasn't Chanel, this was you. This was the scent I know better than my own reflection, the scent that's been on your skin every single morning I've woken up next to you for the last decade. My gaze locked onto hers, refusing to waver. I needed to see it, to see the truth in her eyes, no matter how painful. The air thickened, charged with the unspoken history between us, the shared laughter, the whispered secrets, the promises made. All of it felt fragile now, teetering on the brink of collapse. Her shoulders slumped, a subtle surrender that tore me apart. The practiced composure she'd worn for years, the veneer of the perfect wife and mother, began to crack. Her lower lip trembled. It's not what you think," she pleaded, her voice barely audible. She wrung her hands, her gaze fixed on the floor. Complicated? The word ripped from my throat, laced with a bitterness I hadn't known I possessed. What's complicated about your perfume being in my boss's office late at night, Sarah?
What's complicated about you telling me you were at book club when you were clearly somewhere else entirely? My hands balled into fists at my sides, the tension radiating through me like a live current. I wanted to shake her, to make her see the magnitude of her deceit, the sheer gutting betrayal. But I knew, with a chilling certainty, that shaking her wouldn't change anything. The damage was done. She finally met my gaze again, and this time there was no denying the shame and fear etched onto her features. Tears welled at her eyes, shimmering and threatening to spill. I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered, a broken sound. "Too late for that, isn't it?" I said, the words sharp like shards of glass. I felt a cold, hollow space open up in my chest. "Who is he, Sarah?" The question hung in the air, a death knell for our marriage. I braced myself, half expecting her to name a stranger, a colleague, someone I could at least process. But the name that came when it finally emerged from her lips was a twist of the knife so profound, I thought I might collapse. It's not someone you know," she choked out, a sob escaping her. "It's just someone I met." "Someone you met?" My voice rose, a raw, disbelieving sound. "Someone you met who wears your perfume? Someone you're sneaking around with while I'm working myself to the bone, trying to provide for us, for Lily?" The unfairness of it all, the sheer audacity was overwhelming. My mind flashed back to David, my boss, the man I'd confided in about my work stress, the man whose wife I'd helped pick out a Christmas present for. Could it be him? The thought was so absurd, so twisted it was almost laughable. But the perfume, the timing, it fit too perfectly. "Mark, please," she begged, tears now streaming down her face. "Let me explain." "Explain what, Sarah?" I demanded, my voice cracking. "Explain how my wife, the woman I love, the mother of my child, is having an affair? Explain how she's lying to me, looking me in the eye and lying to me." I ran a hand through my hair, the rough texture a small comfort against the overwhelming chaos in my head. "Who is it, Sarah? I deserve to know." I needed a name, a face, something tangible to attach this suffocating pain to. The thought of David, my boss, having an affair with my wife was so profoundly disturbing it sent a wave of nausea through me. He was a father, a husband. I'd seen pictures of his kids. Was he capable of this? Was Sarah capable of this? She shook her head frantically, her tears blurring her vision. "It's not David. I swear it's not David." Her vehemence surprised me. If it wasn't David, then who? The possibilities spun wildly, each one more terrifying than the last. Was it someone from her book club? A trainer at her gym? A random encounter? The uncertainty was a torment in itself. Then who, Sarah? Who is it? I pressed, my voice laced with desperation. I needed an anchor, a point of reference in the sea of betrayal. The thought of David's knowing smirk, his potential complicity, was still too potent to dismiss entirely. But Sarah's denial, coupled with her obvious distress, made me pause. If it wasn't him, then the betrayal was even more profound, a secret life I knew nothing about. She took a shaky breath,
her eyes squeezed shut as if to ward off the inevitable. I can't. Not yet. You're too angry. Too angry? I scoffed, a harsh, humorless sound. Of course I'm angry, Sarah. You've just shattered everything I believed to be true. You've turned my entire life into a lie. I paced the kitchen, the confined space amplifying my agitation. The familiar comfort of our home now felt alien, a stage for this agonizing drama. So what, I'm supposed to just accept this? Live with this gaping hole where my trust used to be, without knowing who you've been with? She opened her eyes, and the raw pain in them mirrored my own. I'll tell you everything, Mark. I promise. Just not like this. Not when you're like this. She gestured vaguely at me, her hand trembling. Like what, Sarah? Like a man who's just discovered his wife is a stranger? Like a fool who's been blind to the truth right under his nose? I stopped pacing, my gaze falling on the half-prepared dinner on the counter. The ingredients, once symbols of domestic comfort, now seemed like a mockery. So what happens now? Do we just eat dinner? Pretend this conversation never happened? Her lower lip quivered. I don't know, Mark. I don't know. The uncertainty in her voice was almost worse than a direct confession. It left room for doubt, for hope, for a desperate clinging to the past. But it also confirmed the depth of the chasm that had opened between us. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just my wife, but a woman I barely recognized. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd built a life with, had a secret compartment, a hidden life I was only just beginning to glimpse. And the scent of her perfume, once a source of comfort and intimacy, was now a bitter reminder of her deception. I can't do this right now, I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. The anger, the pain, the confusion, they were all there, but they were being smothered by a chilling numbness. I need some air. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, the swinging door a silent punctuation mark to our fractured reality. I grabbed my keys from the hook by the front door and stepped out into the cool night air, the silence of the suburbs a stark contrast to the tempest raging inside me. I ended up at O'Malley's, the same dive bar I'd gone to David 100 times for after-work beers. The familiar sticky floor, the dim lighting, the murmur of conversations. It was a world away from my own shattered home. I ordered a whiskey, neat, and nursed it slowly, letting the burns slide down my throat.
My mind replayed the scene in the kitchen, Sarah's tear-streaked face, her desperate pleas, and David. Always David. Was she lying about it not being him? Or was there someone else? The thought of another man, someone I didn't even know, felt like a violation of a different kind. A violation of my entire social circle, my work life, my very identity as her husband. I pulled out my phone, staring at David's contact information. Should I call him? Confront him? But what would I say? Hey David, my wife's perfume was in your office, so is she cheating on me with you? The absurdity of it all was almost unbearable. He was my boss. Our professional lives were intertwined. If this was true, it would destroy everything. But the alternative? That Sarah was secretly involved with someone else, someone she wouldn't name, was equally devastating. A notification popped up on my screen, a text from Sarah. My heart leaped into my throat, then sank again. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the message. What could she possibly say that would make any of this better? Finally, I tapped it open. Mark, I'm so sorry. I know you're hurting. I'm downstairs, sitting in my car. I can't come inside right now. But I need you to know, the person I'm seeing, it's not David. It's someone unexpected. Someone I never thought. I just need you to hear me out. Please. Unexpected. The word hung in the digital air, mocking me. Unexpected like my wife's perfume on my boss's video call. Unexpected like the seismic shift that had just occurred in my marriage. I looked out the bar window, the streetlights casting long, distorted shadows. My car sat parked a block away. Sarah was sitting in her car, downstairs, somewhere in my neighborhood, but not in my house, not with me. The chasm had widened, and I was left standing on one side, staring across at a future I couldn't even begin to comprehend.
I took another long drink of whiskey, the warmth doing little to combat the ice forming in my veins. The night was far from over, and the questions, far from answered, were only multiplying, each one a fresh wound. The whiskey tasted like ash, like the remnants of a life I'd so carefully constructed, now reduced to smoldering embers. I stared at Sarah's text, unexpected. The word echoed in the hollow space in my chest. Unexpected. Was that supposed to be comforting? Reassuring? It felt like a punch to the gut, another layer of obfuscation. It meant she wasn't just some faceless stranger. It meant there was a person, a face, a history behind this betrayal, and it was someone I, by definition of her evasion, didn't know. But the immediate relief that it wasn't David, my boss, the man I'd shared countless meetings and drinks with, was a small, desperate reprieve. The thought of him, of the sick intimacy of him with Sarah, had been a dark cloud I couldn't shake. Now, it was a different storm, one with an unknown center. I downed the rest of my drink, the burn.
Unexpected. It could mean anything. A coworker, a friend of a friend, someone she met online. The sheer breadth of possibilities was paralyzing. But it also meant she was choosing to tell me. Eventually. That was something, I supposed, a flicker of something akin to hope, quickly extinguished by the enormity of the deception. I stood up, my legs feeling heavy, disconnected from my body. The bartender, a burly guy named Mike who'd seen me through too many bad nights, gave me a knowing nod. He didn't need to ask. The exhaustion etched into my face, the slump of my shoulders, told the whole story. I dropped a 20 on the bar, more than enough for the 2 drinks, and walked out, the cool night air hitting me like a physical force. I drove home, the familiar streets feeling alien. Each house, each lawn, each silhouette of a car in a driveway was a testament to the normalcy I had lost. My own driveway, usually a source of comfort, now felt like a crime scene. Sarah's car was there, parked a few spaces down from mine, a dark, silent sentinel. I pulled my car in, killed the engine, and sat there for a moment, the silence deafening. The only sound was my own ragged breathing, the frantic thumping of my heart against my ribs. Then, her car door opened. The interior light flickered on, casting her face in a pale, ethereal glow. She stepped out, moving slowly, deliberately, as if testing the ground beneath her feet. She was wearing a simple gray sweater and jeans, the same clothes she'd had on when I'd found the perfume. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, a few strands escaping to frame her face. She looked broken, but also determined. She walked towards me, her gaze fixed on my car, not meeting mine until she was standing at my driver's side window. I rolled it down. The night air, carrying the faint scent of freshly cut grass and distant barbecue smoke, felt both familiar and suffocating. "Mark?" Her voice was soft, hesitant. "Yes, Sarah?" My own voice was rough, a stranger's voice. She wrung her hands, her eyes scanning my face, searching for something I couldn't give her right now. I can't stay in the car, and I can't go inside right now either. Not yet. But I need to talk to you. Properly." "Properly?" I repeated, the word tasting bitter. "After what you've done, you want to talk properly? What does that even mean anymore, Sarah?" "It means, I need you to listen," she said, her voice gaining a little strength. "Without interrupting, without the anger, just listen." She took a deep breath, the kind you take before diving into icy water. "The person I'm seeing," she paused, searching for the right words. "It's not someone new, Mark, not in the way you're thinking. It's someone from my past." My stomach clenched. Someone from her past? What did that even mean? A boyfriend from college? An old flame? The unexpected was starting to feel more like a carefully constructed evasion. "Your past? Who, Sarah? Who are you talking about?" She closed her eyes for a brief second, then opened them, her gaze steady, unwavering this time. "It's Michael. Michael Sterling." The name hit me like a physical blow. Michael Sterling. My best friend since kindergarten. The guy who'd been my best man at our wedding. The godfather to Lily. The man I'd shared a beer with just last week, talking about his impending divorce, about how he was struggling to find his footing. Michael.
I stared at her, my mind reeling, trying to connect the dots, trying to make sense of this impossible equation. Michael. My Michael. The betrayal was so profound, so absolute, it was like the ground had vanished beneath me. My best friend. My wife. Together. The image that flashed in my mind, them together, sharing the intimacy that was supposed to be mine, that was supposed to be ours, was a horror I couldn't comprehend. No, I whispered, the sound barely audible. No, Sarah. That's not possible. You're lying. You're lying to me. Tears streamed down her face now, but her voice was clear, resolute. I'm not lying, Mark. It's Michael. It's been going on for about 6 months. We reconnected a year ago, after his divorce started. I didn't intend for any of this to happen. It happened. 6 months. 6 months of shared secrets. 6 months of lies. 6 months of my wife sleeping with my best friend while I was oblivious, working late, providing for our family, believing in her, believing in them.
And I was lost. I made a terrible, terrible mistake. A mistake. I spat the word out. This wasn't a mistake, Sarah. This was a choice, a series of choices. Every single day for 6 months, you chose to lie to me. You chose to be with him. You chose to betray everything we built. I ran my hands through my hair, my nails digging into my scalp. I loved you, Sarah. I built my life around you. I trusted you. And you let him touch you. You let him kiss you. You let him into our bed. The words were like physical blows, each one more devastating than the last. She sank to her knees on the asphalt, her body racked with sobs. It was a raw, guttural sound, a sound of pure despair. For a fleeting moment, I felt a pang of something that might have been pity, a residual shred of the love that had once defined us. But it was quickly consumed by the burning embers of my rage. I can't do this anymore, Sarah, I said, my voice hollow. I can't look at you. I can't be in the same room as you. I can't be your husband anymore. The words were easy to say, yet they felt like I was ripping out my own heart. She looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen, her face a mask of agony. Mark, please, don't say that. We can fix this. We can work through this. I'll do anything. Fix this? I scoffed, shaking my head. How do you fix this, Sarah? How do you unbetray someone? How do you erase 6 months of lies? How do you unlove a person who has destroyed your entire world? I leaned my head back against the headrest, the cool plastic a stark contrast to the inferno raging within me.
Michael, I thought he was my brother. He was the one person I thought I could count on no matter what. And you were my everything. I opened my car door, the hinges creaking in the silence. I'm going to Lily's. I can't be here. Not tonight. Maybe not ever again. I didn't wait for her response. I got into the car, the familiar scent of leather and stale coffee suddenly nauseating. I started the engine, the rumble a jarring sound in the quiet night. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw her still kneeling on the asphalt, a solitary figure in the darkness, her sobs carried on the night air. It was a scene I knew would be seared into my memory forever, the image of my wife, my ex-wife, my betrayer, in the driveway of the home we had built together. I drove through the empty streets, my mind a chaotic storm of images and accusations. Michael's face, his easy smile, the way he always had my back. Sarah's laugh, the way she looked at me, the quiet evenings we spent together. All of it now tainted, corrupted. The sheer scope of the deception was staggering. It wasn't just infidelity, it was a dismantling of my entire reality. My closest friendship, my marriage, my sense of self, all of it lay in ruins. I didn't go to Lily's parents' house. I couldn't face them. Not now, not when I was a walking disaster zone.
Instead, I found myself driving towards the city limits, towards the anonymity of a cheap motel I remembered from a business trip years ago. I needed to be alone, truly alone, to try and piece together the shattered fragments of my life. I checked in, paid cash, and walked into the small, sterile room. The air smelled of disinfectant and stale cigarettes. I threw my keys on the nightstand and collapsed onto the bed, the thin mattress doing nothing to cushion the impact of my despair. I lay there in the dark, the silence pressing in on me, the weight of it all crushing. There were no easy answers, no grand epiphanies, no clear path forward, just a gaping void where my life used to be. I thought of Lily, my daughter, her innocent eyes, her boundless trust. That was the only thing that mattered now. Her well-being, her future. I had to be strong for her, even if I felt like I was crumbling from the inside out. I closed my eyes, and the image of Sarah, kneeling in the driveway, flashed behind my eyelids. Then Michael's face, superimposed over hers. The guilt, the anger, the overwhelming sense of loss. It all swirled together, a toxic cocktail of emotions I knew would haunt me for a long, long time. I reached for my phone, the screen a beacon in the darkness. I scrolled through my contacts, past Sarah, past Michael, past so many people who were now strangers or enemies. I stopped at Lily's name. I couldn't call her, not now, but I typed out a message, a simple, heartbroken confession. Hey sweetie, Daddy loves you more than anything. I'm so sorry I can't be there tonight. Mommy and I were having some grown-up problems, but I promise, I'll see you soon. We'll figure this out. All my love, Daddy. I hit send, the small action feeling like a monumental effort. Then I turned off the phone, plunging the room into darkness. The silence returned, a familiar companion now. I took a deep, ragged breath, the air in my lungs feeling thin and cold. It was the last breath of the man I used to be, the man who believed in love, in friendship, in forever. That man was gone, and who I would become, that was a story yet to be written, a story I had no idea how to begin. The night was long, and the dawning of a new day felt impossibly far away.